obviously anybody who picks up the book from the bookstore, the first thing that would come to their mind is like the whole controversy about him and his daughter, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what you have written. Obviously, I liked your approach, what you just said, that I don't think so, but if I find out, you'll be the first one to know.
Right.
Whatever conclusion that you reached as an author in the book, did the publishers have any suggestions otherwise that no, this
This is a
shouldn't be
very
like
interesting question, and I'm glad you asked it. Um, First of all, I had to be careful not to let that become what the book is about. In other
right,
words, he's got a long, interesting career. I am a reporter, trained as a reporter, and I wasn't, daunted, but it was a lot of work, to do research and think about all these things. But I didn't want to let this whole brouhaha about him overwhelm the book. And actually, during the period of time from which I got the contract until now is almost like 5 years elapsed, and the Me Too movement resurges, and he goes deeper into cancellation, and so in a way, everything about the book became more treacherous, and my opinions became more sensitive to everyone concerned, and um, the lawyers for the publisher looked at it very carefully. Um, uh, and lawyers, I have found, because I had a book sued by Clint Eastwood, I have had books threatened with suit. My Hitchcock book was threatened with suit. My Cukor book was threatened with suit. I pride myself on doing what is on the edge of acceptable, and also knowing the law. And I believe in truth and fact, and also good judgment and fair assumption, all those things. And so they looked at it very, very carefully. And it's one of the things that kept the book going when everyone thought, oh, maybe we shouldn't publish this book because there'll be such an outcry, nobody will buy it. No, I can't argue with either of these things. I would say this is a reasonable perspective on the possible book. But the lawyers looked at it very carefully, and lawyers are very good copy editors. They're better than copy editors. They say, "What do you mean by this word?" I go, "Well, I mean that." They go, "Well, it's a little loaded. Shouldn't you say this instead?" I go, "It's a good word. It's good." So they're very good copy editors, and they pick at things. And this particular lawyer was good enough to even find things in the book that had nothing to do with any legal issue that was simply inaccurate, and point them out, mainly things that being from Wisconsin about New York, I got wrong, you know. So he was a really good copy editor. He was a great legal beagle, And at the end, he said, you were really, really careful and judicious and reasonable and accurate. And it's amazing. You did a great job. He was really, really complimentary. I don't want to I didn't write it down, but
I
he
get
was,
it, yeah.
and inside the house, you know, if he had said anything negative, the book might be dead. It certainly would have been problematic. But the fact that he had said something good, really good, and I never asked if he could be swayed or did anyone ever go back and talk to him. But I'm sure people went back and talked to him, and he said, "No, it's good." He liked it. Uh, we made some changes. We tried to, as I say, minimize some things that didn't need to be maximized. There was much more in original drafts about Ronan Farrow, for example. And both my editor and the lawyer said, you don't need that. That is just going to get you attacked for something that has nothing to do with the bulk of the book, And these are always good criticisms, and so there were little things that were changed and little things that were, but nothing strangely. That's why it's such a big book. I mean, strangely, not a lot was either taken out or radically, drastically changed. And most of it was really, really, intelligent. Every once in a while, and this happens in when you write about film books, and this is going to make you chuckle, and I'm going to be a little bit unclear about exactly what I mean, just because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But every once in a while, your editor will say to you, Pat, I love that film. Can't you like it a little bit more just for me? And see, I'm not ideological about films at all. I'm not dogmatic at all. In fact, I believe the people who say Megalopolis is terrible are right, and the people who say Megalopolis is a work of genius are right. They're both right. So then I change it. And I did that with one particular movie in the Woody Allen book because the editor speaking to me was so heartfelt. You know, I said, gee, you're probably right. I probably was too dismissive. I'll go back and make that much nicer, you know. And so um, I know from like people listening to this who aren't in the field, this might sound like a terrible compromise. No, actually, it's my point of view. My point of
Yeah.
view is your point of view is very interesting and important. And if I can honor that in some way, you know, without doing something that goes against my grain, I'm happy. You know, I'm happy. So it's better that way. This film that I liked better because of this editor's remark is treated better in the book. And, you know, one of the interesting things about the book, which you don't know because you haven't read it, is that I polled over 100 important film critics for the final chapter over what films they consider to be Woody's greatest and their favorites. And then it's like 107 critics, including famous critics who are famous now and famous critics who have since deceased, you know, and many I knew, and then a lot of young people and bloggers and people I don't know from Adam, you know, and this film that I was obliged to like more, you know, is in like the top 15, which is saying a lot, you know, might even be in the top 10. I can't remember, like at the bottom of the top 10. But what you found out was that amongst 107 film critics, partly justifying this long, laborious explanation, is that people would say things like Woody didn't make any good movies after 1992. He made too many movies and not many of them were good. But you find out that in the top 10, there's like 4 or 5 after 1992 that got 35 votes out of 107, which is a lot. You know, I'm making up these numbers because I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly. But, you know, that in fact, it's a lot easier to list the Woody Allen films that didn't get a vote. One of which is Interiors, you know, which was nominated for like 5, 6, 7 Oscars. So yes, views change over time, and critical views especially change over time. And but mostly the film critics didn't hold it against Woody that he's been canceled by the culture. Mostly they
Hmm.
did not. In fact, Manhattan is like, I think, number 2. You know, even though women voted for it, female film critics voted for it with the parentheses. However, I can't stand the relationship between the older guy Woody, and the young girl in the story, and that's considered a kind of seminal work of Woody's, like being, you know, grooming young people on screen, you know, in a role. So I find there's a lot of room, especially with Woody Allen, to agree or disagree about that. So, but number 1 was Annie Hall.
Hmm. No surprise there.
Runaway, Runaway, number 1. No qualms about the past, you know.
What's your favorite Woody Allen film or top three?
Well, sadly, it would be probably Annie Hall too. So I have no, like, you know, headline shockers for you. But I will say that, you know, the ones that I would have put in the top 10, or even I asked people to name their top 5, and then we added up all the numbers. We meaning me. But you know, I would have put films in the top 5 that aren't in the top 10, you know, like Stardust Memories or Deconstructing Harry, which I really like those movies. And then I would have ranked some films a lot higher, like I think Match Point is number 7 or 8 or something. Again, I can't remember exactly, but I would have ranked it probably in my top 5. It's hard because actually,
Yeah, it
when you
is. Hard.
sit down, for example, one of the movies that got an amazing amount of uh, votes, and I think is in the top 5, is the one I hadn't thought about it as being so beloved and highly ranked, but it's the one with Mia Farrow where he's a vaudeville booker agent, you know, um, and the name is escaping me. Everybody loves the movie. There's nothing not to love. You know, it's an adorable wonderful Woody Allen movie. And I think it got in the top 5. I would have been tempted. I wouldn't have thought of doing that, but after doing the poll, I'd be tempted to put it in my own top 5 because it is really a perfect movie. But the ones that got in the top 5 are like Annie Hall, Manhattan, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Purple Rose of Cairo, I think, and maybe Zelig.